Hello, everybody. I am Bobby. He is Tom. We are the Noise Brigade. This is going to be a little bit of an Eagles centric episode, so keep that in mind as you decide to listen or not. Tom, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, I was funny whenever we were talking about this earlier. In my head, I kind of had this wrapped up as this is either part three of our Eagles 2021 season series or part one of our Eagles 2022 series, or both.
Yeah, I mean it could be. It's a nice little segue, if you will. And obviously we've been kind of harping on the Eagles a little bit recently, and I think it's just so that I don't go into withdrawal. Um, I think you're kind of, helping me through this like it's a 12-step program, since football season is essentially over for us. I mean, I'm still going to watch, and hopefully root the Buffalo Bills on to victory in the Super Bowl, but um, for all intents and purposes, it's on to the off season for us.
Yeah, and and that's the one thing. Like, look, I love baseball, but I really will truly mostly only watch Phillies baseball. It's very hard pressed for me to watch any other teams. I love keeping up with them and I love the players and the stats. Football, though, I can watch, professional football. I'm not a big college football person, but NFL, I just love watching games. And it doesn't matter who's playing. So, yeah, even though for me, you look, season's over, whatever. I'm like you though. I'm still gonna watch, these games ahead, and I'm gonna root some players on, and hopefully, we'll see some different teams in the Super Bowl.
Honestly, my wish right now is that it is the Cardinals and oh, well, it can't be the Cardinals. Never mind. So that
No,
one's
no,
already out.
they're gone.
Uh, so looking at the teams that are left, I think the least offensive Super Bowl to me would probably be the Niners and the Bills. Although I would like to see the Packers and the Chiefs play too. That would be a cool matchup, I think.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and I kind of was thinking about, what was the first Super Bowl I really remember watching, and it was the Bengals Niners Super Bowl 23, I think it
Mhm.
was. And I was like, you know what? There's a chance that could happen again. Um, because they're both still alive this
I keep
year.
forgetting that the Bengals are still alive.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you look, that AFC is tough. I mean, you've got a really strong and on fire and have been since like what, week 6 or 7, Kansas City. That's just a ridiculous team. Buffalo is just good Lord. I mean, they're just stacked, and that's going to be a tough one. So coming out of the AFC, it's really hard for me to think that the Bengals are going to be the ones that do it because we haven't even seen the Titans yet. They were the
Right.
they were the number one seed, and it's just and I believe Derrick Henry's back.
Yes, he's been activated. So
So yeah, I mean, look, that's that the Bengals certainly out of all four of those teams are not to me the ones, but it would be really cool to see them get back in it after all these years. But the
see
same
now
could
I
be said
should
for the 49. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
now I should also point out that we're recording this one in advance. So by the time this airs, we may look like complete idiots.
That's very true. So, but we could treat this like the Eagles season preview. How about that?
That's true. We could do that.
But really, this episode isn't about the playoffs so much. It's just, we're going to talk more of Eagles looking ahead.
Right.
And so, dependent upon when it's posted, though, it should be well prior to the 2022 season.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, as long as my computer doesn't melt down again, I think we'll be pretty good. It decided that it wanted to play hardball the other day, so it took me a little bit to get Kyler's episode posted, but we got that posted. Everything seems to be rolling along now, and we're back at it and going to knock out quite a few this weekend. So it's
Yeah,
should be
definitely.
fun. Should be fun.
Definitely.
But
And
without any further ado, let's jump into this, man. So um, the big news that's come out lately, and I'm not sure if you're how up to date on this part you are. You saw Jonathan Gannon, our defensive coordinator, much maligned defensive coordinator, looks like he might be the front runner for the Houston Texans job.
Yeah, and it's like, good for him, if that's going to be his deal as the head coach there. That's a tough situation to walk into because to me, you're looking at a team that really, look, we'll put the whole Deshaun Watson stuff aside. From obviously him not being there for what the first time in how many years?
Oh, it's
Uh,
been quite a few.
and so we'll put that kind of aside. Look, that's a rough team right now. They have a lot of problems. If Gannon's going to get in there, you know, I'm hoping that fan base doesn't expect more than to take a 4-win team to a 6-win team, because that's probably what's going to happen. That's just they're not good at
and
all.
it's
And
and it's not just the talent on the field. It's at the front office, man. The front office, the ownership is terrible. That organization is one of the worst run in sports.
oh yeah,
And I mean, no matter who takes over, Vince Lombardi himself could come back from the grave and instantly become the best coach in the world, like download all the information that into his brain, be the best football coach in the world, and he's not gonna get that team anywhere.
no, exactly. That's a top down thing, like you said. And yeah, there are some greatly talented players there still, but the problem is they're just not a team. And when I say a team is kind of what you referenced. It's the ownership, the the management. It's just not good. And the other thing too, you're in a tough division there. Look, Jacksonville's not doing anything, but the Titans and the Colts are. The Colts were just, basically a game away from the playoffs themselves, and the Titans were the number one seed in the AFC overall. So
Right.
you got a tough division there.
And honestly, if the Cons can get a good head coach in there and they can stay out of his way, I think that there'll be a quick turnaround. Because I think honestly, with the Jaguars, you look at that team, and it's not like that team is devoid of talent. That is a roster that has some talent on it, and if they can get things squared away from in the coaching area, and the Cons kind of like stay out of it a little bit, I don't quite know how to say it because it's not like Shad Khan is like down there telling them, "Oh, you need to play this player, you need to play this player." But I feel like he also can't get out of his own way with these hires and stuff.
Right.
And so he's gotta trust his GM to hire a good coach and just let them run it.
Yeah, no. And the kid they have as a quarterback there.
Trevor
Um,
Lawrence.
yeah. Boy, I tell you what, I watched the Monday night game with him, and I think it was Monday night or Sunday night game. And boy, he looked good, and it's weird to see how good of a quarterback he could be in a game, one game kind of microcosm environment, um, and then yet be a 3-win team.
Right.
It just is really strange to me, because you do have other people, and again, I think they had the injury bug and whatever bite them too. But you have to me a really ultra talented running back in Robinson. Um, but I believe the injury bug bit him.
Well, part of the
Uh,
issue with him was that what's his name? The dumbass, it was Urban Meyer, didn't want to play him. He
yeah,
benched him.
yeah, and
And it's like that's your best offensive weapon.
he is. He's a great pass catcher in the back. He's just a great rusher. Then you have these other people that we've talked about before, and maybe not on here, but Chenault and some of these other, just really good,
Yeah.
talented players in the field there for them. And just it's a shame. I mean, that team could very well be, I'm like, look, I'm not saying they were going to hit 500 this year, but that could be could have been a 6 or 7 win team this year. And I think that's what, to me, look at Gannon maybe as the front runner for the Texans. Like you said, look, Lombardi himself could come back from the grave, and the Texans just aren't going anywhere. It's going to be a tough role for Gannon. Good luck to him if he ends up getting the job. So yeah, that um, certainly puts the Eagles though kind of in a different spot, doesn't it?
It does, and it's one that honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably wrong on this, and I will say that right off the bat. But I'm happy he's gone, and I say that because watching his defense all year long, I did not see a scheme that should be played anywhere above the JV level. And it was just a vanilla defense. There was no pressure. We were one of the lowest sack total teams in the league. I think we were the lowest. I really should have this information in front of me before I go talking crap, but um,
That's
I
why
mean,
we have computers in front of us, though. So,
but honestly, they did not pass the eye test, and the eye test says a lot. And when you back it up with the stats and that they were, they made it by the end of the season, they were a top 10 defense in the league. But and I understand you can only play who's on your schedule. But if you're going to be a great defense, if you're going to be a great team, you win in the playoffs. You don't get your doors blown off like they did against Tampa Bay. And
so
yes, okay.
no. No, go ahead because I'll throw the sack stats at you too, just so you're not going crazy.
Okay. So just Tampa is a unique beast, but at the end of the day, good teams win in the regular season. Great teams win the postseason. And
Right.
right now, as things stand, the Eagles do not have a great defense. They do not have a great offense. They could be on the cusp of them with some work, with some changes, but as it stands right now, they don't have either of those things.
No, and you had just said that the worst in the league. You're very close. Second worst in the league, at 29 overall sacks. For reference, the Pittsburgh Steelers were the best, or the most, I should say, 55 overall sacks. But the Eagles were not the worst. 29. There was one team worse. You want to take a gander at what team that might have been?
Oh, wait. So let's see. I'm gonna say the New York Giants.
Close. They were bad, but they had 34, so 5 more than the Eagles. The Atlanta
Okay.
Falcons with 18.
Really?
18 team sacks, 11 less.
18?
Yeah, 11 less than the Eagles. There's players that probably were hitting close to that mark this year.
Dude, listen. I I can't fathom an NFL team only how they have an I did had all right, now I gotta Google it.
TJ Watt for the Steelers, 22 and a half sacks. Atlanta
Yeah.
Falcons team, 18. There you go.
All right. So I gotta look this up. Did the Falcons fire their D coordinator? Because you cannot. Okay. So no, they did not.
I mean, what's even crazier too? It's not like they had like one guy. It's like, oh, they've got a stalwart that's got 10 or 11 sacks. No, their guy, Dante Fowler, led the team 4.5 sacks.
Get out. I can't. That makes me sick. That makes me
4.5.
sick.
So, and to kind of think about it, so going back to the Eagles, because this is what this is about. Looking at the Eagles stats this year, for team leaders in sacks, you had a tie between Josh Sweat and Javon Hargrave, 7.5 each.
And
Both
Javon
of those
Hargrave,
players had 3 more sacks, both of them, and they were the second worst in the league. That's how bad the Falcons were at sacking players.
Dude, all right. So, and let's put this out there right now too, because I want this to be known. So, look, I love Javon Hargrave. Javon Hargrave is a beast this year. But Javon Hargrave, of those, you said 7.5 sacks?
Yeah.
So I believe it was through the first 5 games he had 6 sacks.
Okay. So yeah, he was on fire very early on.
So
yeah.
So we've got to do better there. And I think one of the telling things that came out during the season was after one of the games, Fletcher Cox, who has been, by all accounts, stand-up guy, great player for the Eagles for a long time, comes out and says he's frustrated with the defensive scheme. He's not allowed to do what he does best. And it was showing up on the stat sheet because he was not making any kind of any kind of moves. He wasn't doing anything for them. You know, the stats weren't there. You barely noticed him on game day because he wasn't being able to be turned loose and put pressure on the defense. Um, so they were playing. It seemed like they were playing. All right, you're just going to kind of muck things up in the front, but you're not allowed to actually put pressure on the quarterback. And I think that with a new defensive coordinator in there with a more aggressive scheme and with actual different looks and different fronts, you know, it's hard to tell if you made it all black and white and you couldn't tell who were the Eagles or who the Eagles were playing against every game. You could take different sets, different defensive sets from any given game, and you wouldn't be able to tell who they were playing against because it was the same frickin' defense every single time. And yeah, they might go with a nickel or a dime um, on the back end, and so you're losing linebackers and stuff. But they did not put pressure on the defense or on the offense, and that cost them games. You know, it
Yeah,
just flat out cost them games because they did not have the defensive backs to be able to compensate for no rush and no pressure
it
up front.
it was very flat all season. You're right. There was just nothing there. There was nothing to be really, and as a fan too, there's nothing to be excited about that way. And you look up article after article after article about what the 2022 Eagles needs are, and edge rusher comes up number one. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
And then number two, guess what? You're in the secondary and you're looking at a safety, a corner. You're really, defensively. That's it. I think we're going to really dive into that, whether it's talking about the draft or free agents. But I mean, yeah, defense. My goodness, it just and I, look, uh, the second you said it, they were almost the worst. If it wasn't for the Falcons and how god awful that was, that's a whole statistical anomaly we could talk about for another show.
right.
But yeah, if it really wasn't for them, I mean, yeah, bottom of the barrel, not good at all.
Right. And when you're not forcing turnovers and you're not getting sacks, you're not going to win football games. That's a bottom line. In the NFL, there's two things you need to have to win games. You need to have a positive in the turnover category, and you need to have either a lights out offense or B, a lights out defense. And the Eagles had neither. They had a great running game once they decided that they were going to run
To
the
actually
ball.
run the ball, yeah.
Right. But but that happened far too late and it couldn't mask their other deficiencies because
Right. You
their defense couldn't get the offense back on the field.
Right. And you had a lot, look, like you said, you had a lot of good legs there, whether it's Hurts or Sanders or Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, whatever. You had a lot of good legs there. But again, that's going to be another part we're going to talk about here going on. Um, when they finally decided to run it, mainly because, for whatever reason, the rushing yards were coming between, Hurts himself or, these god awful pass plays, and we'll get into the receivers because we certainly know that's a need.
Yeah.
It just look, talked about it defensively for a good part of the season, and you made a great remark about this. I think you said it on Twitter or Facebook or both, but this was a fluke. They were not supposed to make the playoffs
Right. Oh
at
no.
all.
That's the thing. This team I'm happy with them. I'm proud of them. And I don't want that to get lost in the negative that we're going to be talking about today because there is a lot of positives about this team. There's a lot to like about this team. There is a lot of hope for the future for this team. This game, and I'm not at all a moral victory guy or oh, there's a lot to be learned in failure and loss. No, no. Every time I see my team on the field, I want them to win. End of story. You know, but this team, even though they were playing with, and I hate to use the term, even though they were playing with house money, still the goal every time. No moral victory in losing. Um,
Yeah.
but this experience was invaluable. I'm proud of the team for sticking together, for rallying around Sirianni. And honestly, it kudos to Nick Sirianni. I was probably one of the first people jumping up to get this guy out of here. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. This offense
Yes,
looks
yes, you
like
were.
garbage. Um, Hell, even Richie of all people talked me down off of that, you know, and but at the time he wasn't making the adjustments that clearly needed to be made. He wasn't running the ball. He was running jet sweeps with frickin' Jalen Rieger. He was not. He was making Jalen Hurts throw the ball 50 odd times a game. That's not how this team wins. You have one of the best pass blocking. I almost said road blocking, but it's road grading offensive lines in the league. And to not use that strength when you're developing a young quarterback and trying to get an offense running, it's just stupid.
Yeah, yeah. No, so one thing I want I'm going to throw some free agents at you. And you know these players. I'm not going to list all the Eagles free agents. There's a handful, because we don't need to get into the Jason Crooms of the world.
Right.
But there's some really top-notch names here. I'm not saying top-notch in terms of necessarily their own ability, but for the position they played this year for the Eagles. So I'm just gonna go off the top here and look at safeties. Rodney McLeod, Anthony Harris, both free agents. Oof. And
I will fly to Philadelphia and drive Anthony Harris out of town.
yeah, he's not coming back.
No,
Hopefully.
no, I shouldn't say that. I'll save that for someone else on the team, or three other people on the team. No,
I was gonna
Anthony.
say I've got one for you that you'll save it for.
Yeah, Anthony Harris wasn't. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't the player that we thought he was going to be when he came to town. Came in on a prove it deal from Minnesota and did not prove it. Um, I was hoping he would. I was excited when we brought him in. I really thought he was going to do well in this defense. Rodney McLeod, Super Bowl hero, still able to make some plays. He was coming back off some difficult injuries. I would not mind seeing him back, but if he's coming back, I'd want to see it in a more like a rotational type deal. He is an extremely good dude, does awesome stuff in the community. And if he does leave this offseason, he's always going to have a spot for me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to see him back with the team in a reduced capacity, maybe some, like I said, some kind of rotational role, but I can't see him back as a starter.
Right. That's exactly what I thought about too. And, look, age is, I hate to say it too. It's like, because, look, we're a lot older than these people we're talking about, but it's crazy to think about. But
Yeah.
look, he's 32, and for the position he plays, look, he doesn't need to be the starter anymore. I really would love to see him back, but yeah, I thought the same thing. It's more of a, I like the way you phrase it, rotational, transitional type. And that could get into some things we'll talk about with the draft picks and free agents in a bit, but it's certainly, I kind of, same thing. I was like, Anthony Harris, just go away. Rodney McLeod, love to see it back. I would not be surprised if he obviously doesn't, and it may be because of another free agent move for the Eagles side or, for himself. I mean, there may
Right.
be better opportunities like, hey, I can start in XYZ, city. So now you talked about useless. I mean, starts with a Ryan, ends with a Kerrigan.
Yeah. Look, man, Ryan Kerrigan, you were great in Washington. You did nothing during the regular season. There's no reason for you to be back. Thank you for your service. Have a great day.
Yeah, there's a great line here. Oh, where was it about? Yeah. Ryan Kerrigan was about as useful as a towel on a flood this year.
Yeah. And that's listen, That is pretty good. So here's a good stat for you. So Ryan Kerrigan and Zach Wood of the Saints were the only defensive ends in the NFL to play in at least 16 games this year without recording a sack, and Wood didn't play a single defensive snap.
Yeah, Ryan Kerrigan's overall numbers were just not good at all.
Right.
At all. In the uh, uh, 20, excuse me, in the entire 16 games he played in the regular season, 3 tackles, no sacks. Somehow, some way, he managed a sack and a half in the playoff game and 2
Yeah.
tackles.
Oh yeah. I
He
mean,
basically played his entire season's worth of stats in one game in the playoffs.
right. Which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. So
Yeah.
he's clearly
Goodbye.
yeah.
Yeah. He's a good
Goodbye.
Let's talk corners. Well, Steven Nelson on Andre's gone. Well, free agent. I don't know. Look, corners. I really think there's more of a need. Obviously, with safety there, corners there will be a need for. Look, I don't know the ins and outs of what they'll end up doing here, but obviously it's not the top guys that are free agents this year for them corners. So we're.
So Steven Nelson, I thought did a good job on another 1 year prove it deal. I think that his stats, he didn't have the interceptions, but I feel like his stats and Darius Slay not being an All Pro this year is an absolute disgrace.
Oh, that's why I was like, look, Slay is there. It's not like, it was ridiculous.
But Steve Nelson did a good job for what we brought him in for. Unfortunately, he won't be back. He's gonna get paid this offseason.
Yeah,
So
I thought the same thing.
I am, and their stats would have been even better if we would have had an adequate pass rush and if they would have had support underneath from the linebackers. But our linebacking core was basically non-existent for 6 games. So
yeah,
that
and this is one of those things to me. We'll get into, but with the Eagles' kind of breadth of draft picks this year, it's I'm not saying that it's easy to find a top flight corner in every NFL draft every year, but the Eagles have so many picks this year that I, for one, think that's where they'll go. We'll talk about that, but and we'll look at free agents too. Do they have a couple of interesting running back free agents though, in Jordan Howard and Boston Scott? Obviously the Eagles kind of have a plethora of running backs. You start including Miles Sanders and so forth, and Gainwell even. I mean, it's really kind of been an interesting player this year. It's been kind of fun to watch whenever he's got the ball. But what do you think? Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, these guys coming back?
So I'm gonna make an unpopular take. I'm gonna give an unpopular take here. I like Miles Sanders. I think we should go a different direction. I think we should trade Miles Sanders. We bring back Boston Scott. We bring back Jordan Howard. Okay, we've got Kenny Gainwell, we've got Howard, we've got Scott. And then there's an intriguing running back option on the free agency list that I would like to see brought in. And then maybe you don't keep all 4. Maybe you do a 3 and then you throw somebody on the practice squad or you just out and out cut somebody. I don't know what way you go, but I would like to see them, like I said, trade Miles Sanders and bring in Melvin Gordon.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, no, you're not, and it's funny going through some of the articles and prep work and stuff. Getting Miles Sanders out of town is certainly not anything that's seems to be like it's completely out from left field. That seems to be a kind of a running theme. Like, hey, we could trade him for something.
Right.
Which is interesting because they have that breadth of talent. But again, both Boston and Jordan Howard are free agents, so you got to kind of work into that too. So it's like, how do you work around that? With potentially, okay, hey, we could trade Miles Sanders, but what if we're unable to re-sign Jordan and Boston Scott? And I think that's an interesting, that's a good, it's a good problem to have.
Right.
Mainly because you have so many that are capable of actually doing something with the ball.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot to they have a lot of options in the backfield. Obviously, we were one of the best running teams in the league, and it was against some lesser opponents but we also didn't figure it out until we were playing those lesser opponents. So there's nothing to say that if we didn't try that earlier in the season, it's not successful because it
Right.
very well could have been. The problem being we didn't get the chance to see that. Now that said, it's a good problem to have. We've also seen a lot of injuries in that backfield. So it's a necessary thing. And so even Jordan Howard had the stinger. He was out. Miles Sanders, Miles Sanders hasn't played, I don't think, a full season in his NFL career. He's constantly missing games. Great running back, great guy, but I'm ready to move on. I'm not going to be pissed if he's on the roster, and I'll still support him. I'm a Miles Sanders fan, but I just think that if you're looking to improve and you're not just sticking with sentimentality, I think he's somebody you can move on from and improve and possibly have a better outcome next season.
I think so too. Look, from yards from scrimmage, Miles Sanders was a 1,000-pluser in both 19 and 20, but not a 1,000-yard rusher. And quite frankly, to me, we could split hairs here with 1,000-yard rushers comparative to players that 1,000 combined yards from the backfield with either passing or receiving and rushing. But I really would like to see a good solid 1,000-yard rusher in Philadelphia. Just a good stout, staunch running back. I know it sounds kind of silly to say because look, Miles Sanders was that guy pretty much the last 3 years, but not all on the ground though. And I think that's what I would really like to see, kind of shorten that up. Whether that would come from a Boston Scott or a Jordan Howard, it remains to be seen. But look, like you said, the Eagles as a team, led the league in rushing yards, so they're capable of it. I don't know. That's a good one to think about. Get some other interesting ones. Got Jannard Avery, but Alex Singleton, linebackers that are both free agents. What do you think there?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think you bring Alex Singleton back. Jannard Avery, I don't know. I can't see bringing him back. He's just not. He doesn't produce when he's on the field. He's on the field a lot, and you can't discount that. But it's not like he's out there playing with like his hair's on fire. He's there, but I just can't see him to. I can't see him being, a big time player. Alex Singleton, I figure will probably be relegated to a little bit of a lesser role this year, hopefully, assuming there's not a bunch of injuries again in the linebacking core. Um, once we lost TJ Edwards and Davion Taylor, they kind of had to go back to him, and he played okay. I mean, I'm pretty sure he led the team in tackles again for a second year in a row. But he's not somebody that I want to have to count on in the middle of my defense.
Right. And I agree. I think Singleton comes back, and I'm not really keen on Avery, but yeah, no, it is what it is. That's one of those that, look, we're not talking about top flight players here. We're we're just kind of running through the Eagles free agents. And speaking of not top flight players, Greg Ward is also a free agent.
No, hey man,
Don't get me
no.
wrong. I like Greg
I
Ward,
love
but
Greg Ward, man. No, Greg Ward's back with this team. If it's up to me, Greg Ward is back on this team. I have no bones with Greg Ward. Dude goes out and play. All he does is go out and catch passes, and I'm good. I'm good with Greg Ward.
But you and I both know, though, that he is certainly not, wide receiver one, wide receiver two here.
No, but
Um,
I look at Greg Ward like your Jason Avant. That's who he is to me. And he's a steady wide receiver. You throw him the ball, he's going to catch it. And that's, he's not going to be the flashiest guy. He's not a guy that's going to set the league on fire. He's not going to have 1,000 yards receiving. But you need a tough catch. You throw it to Greg Ward.
yeah, look, I mean, I think the thing with me is the guy's just not on the field for hardly anything ever. He had 11 targets all year. He's just not, he's not one, he's not two, he's not three. But, he'll probably come back. But again, we're kind of getting into the really deep parts of the roster at this point. That's what I'm saying. Except for, and we could talk about, let's see, we got Hassan Ridgeway is a free agent this year. Nate Herbig.
I'm good with him gone. Nate Herbig, I want back.
Yeah, Herbig's young too. He's only 24. So, I mean, that's one I would, like to see back as well. Didn't mention the biggest name though. I saved this one.
I've got 4 people that I need to discuss that need to be gone
before we get to the big one that needs to be back.
I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna fight you in the parking lot behind the old Sickles in Bridgeton with broken glass. That's how this is gonna go because I know what you're gonna say. Go ahead, say it.
Jason Kelce needs to be back.
Oh, okay. No, I thought you were messing with me. I thought you were gonna say. That's where you were gonna bust out Jalen Reagor.
Oh no! Oh no! I won't even joke about that. That's
okay,
dude. I've already written him off this team. I don't even know.
Okay.
To me, he's like not even listed, although he should be on this list. Like, I almost kind of just want to hack this website and just add him.
Okay. All right. Good.
I ain't joking about Jalen. No. Okay. That's not even funny.
No. Well, that's why I was so angry. That's why I was ready to fight.
No. I was saving the best for last. Look, Jason Kelce.
Okay.
He's free agent. Well, he's a free agent this year. So,
technically he's not. Technically, he's still under contract. But what they did is they put in the poison pill year. So what that means is that if he's still on the team and no action has been taken on his contract by June 2nd or 3rd, I think it is, he's guaranteed, I think, $30 million.
Oh, so a weird club option thing on him.
Right, exactly. Okay, so it's an option, but it's not. So to kind of, it was a cap tool. So, but yeah, obviously the biggest one that we want back is Jason Kelce, and Nick Sirianni, and again showing what kind of guy he is, what kind of leader he is, sending Jason Kelce 2 kegs of beer to try and convince him to stay. So, that's the kind of boss that I want.
Yeah, exactly. No, look, you talk about Jalen Reagor.
Again, another not a free agent, but dude needs to be.
Yeah, not a free agent. No, look, I've seen enough of him on the field to know that I think you shared this opinion at some point recently. He needs to be gone, and Quez Watkins needs to be where, wide receiver 3, basically.
So here's what they did. So Nick Sirianni came out, and he was walking down the depth chart. And he basically said for wide receivers that it goes Devontae Smith, then Quez Watkins as wide receiver 2, and then Jalen Reagor as wide receiver 3. So that right there is already a nail in the coffin. You figure this is one of the deepest free agency classes of wide receivers in years. And it's all just adding up to hopefully them cutting their losses, because I swear to God, if I see another freaking jet sweep with Jalen Reagor that loses yards, I'm going to lose my mind more than I've already lost it. Like, I can't with that play. He doesn't need to return punts anymore. He is a negative player. The Eagles would be better off playing with 10 players than they would with having 11 and Jalen Rieger's one on the field. He does, it's not just that he doesn't make plays to help you win the game, he makes plays that actively make you lose games. If the
Yeah,
Eagles weren't already down in that game against the Bucs, that punt, that muffed punt that he had would have been a play that you could point to and say, you know what, that play lost them the game, because that's the kind of plays he makes. He is very rarely ever making positive plays for the team,
he
and
caught
you can't
33
have that.
balls this year for less than 300 yards.
And didn't
And
and Henry Ruggs caught what 50 some passes for 500 some yards and was in jail.
and yeah,
So
I need to see him gone. Um, we'll talk about here in a minute the free agents who we could look at. But all right, so let's write him off because we don't want to see him back. Who
right.
else do you got? You got 3 other players that you said that you don't want to see back, regardless of their current status.
Oh, they're all free agents. These
Okay.
these three are all free agents. So he was the only one that's not, that just needs to be gone. So the other three that I have are going to be JJ Arthega-Whiteside, who, if given the choice, I would rather have JJ Arthega-Whiteside on the team than Jalen Rieger, because at least JJ Arthega-Whiteside plays on special teams and gives you some kind of value that way.
True.
But he can't catch the ball. And yeah, I get it. He was playing with a blown up finger apparently, and that's why he dropped that end zone pass. I don't care. No, man. Sorry, but you can be gone unless it's either you or Rieger. Then I'll keep you on the team because I like you as a person. Not that I know Jalen Rieger as a person, but I need him gone. I need to exercise that deep. The second person, Derek Barnett.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't mention him. Yes, he is. Yes.
So Derek Barnett, when we were growing up, Mike Mamula was the big draft bust that everybody always talked about. Oh, it's Mike Mamula all over again. Mike Mamula had more sacks in the same time frame as this clown. But you know what Mike Mamula didn't have that this guy has all the time? Unsportsmanlike conduct penalties.
Yeah.
He didn't actively hurt his team. There's going to be a trend with these three, or with the players that I want gone from this team. They're all players that have actively hurt the team. Derek Barnett does not give you enough positives for the negatives that he inflicts upon the team. He cannot be back. I wish they would have not used his option last year, but it turned out they needed it when Brandon Graham went down. Still, I would have rather, he's another player where I would have rather, I don't care if you get like a Make-A-Wish kid and put him out there at defensive end, still would have been better than Derek Barnett.
20 tackles and 2 sacks all year.
Yeah. So useless. I will drive him out of Philly. And then the third one, the guy that's going to ride in the trunk, because it's going to be me and Derek Barnett and Jalen Rieger and JJ Arthega-Whiteside, like sitting in the cab of my car. We're putting Aaron Sippos, the punter, in the trunk and
taking him back
driving him.
to
Yeah.
Australia.
No. You know what? No, he doesn't even get to go to Australia. I'm going to drive him to Mexico and just throw him in the Rio Grande, and then he can find his own way back to Australia. Look, started off good. I mean, the bottom line on that is we never should have let Cameron Johnston go. But again, the Houston Texans, showing how great of an organization they are, gave him $8 million to be their punter. I don't want to pay a punter $8 million. I don't care how good you are. So we need to go out and get a new punter, one that's not going to kick a punt 20 yards down the field in a playoff game. And again, that play didn't cost them the game, but it could have. So no, Aaron Sippos, you're gone. Bye-bye.
All right. So now we know who won in week gone. Let's talk about 2 things though here that we've got this really makes for the offseason be quite interesting. Before we get into the free agents, because that's the exciting part, and we can go back and forth on who we'd like to see. The draft. Boy, we got some really good spots here. So I want to run this down real quick. I'm not going to go through all the stuff here, as far how they got these, but the Eagles have, as of now, 3 first-round draft picks, a second round, a third round, a fourth round, 3 fifth-round picks, and a sixth round. No seventh-round picks. So overall, they have 10 picks in the first 6 rounds, which is quite interesting, really. A lot of it, comes from, trades and whatever else you've had there. But at their first round picks right now, you're at spot 15, 16, and 19. So I thought, and this is again my thinking here, and I think others suggested this, with 3 first round picks, you kind of have that thinking that one of those is going to be traded. Particularly one of the 3 first round picks. But my question is, do they trade it up, or kind of linear, where they go for another put a first and second rounder, first and third rounder together to get like a couple spots up or something, or do they trade for a piece? Something that's out there maybe during the draft, because that does happen. So what's your take? What do you think they're going to do here in the draft? I'm not talking about like necessarily who they're going for in the draft, but like, what do they do with these picks?
So I can tell you what I want them to do and what I believe they're going to do are two completely different things.
Okay.
Ideally for me, I'm going to name one name that I need them to take. And so I need them to use all 3 picks. I need 2 of those picks to be used on defense. I need one of them to be used, at least one of them used on an edge rusher. I need one of them used on a corner, a safety, or a linebacker. Okay. Now, the Eagles haven't drafted a linebacker in the first round since the 70s. It's well documented. There's one player that I need them to take, and it's going to be the center from Iowa, Tyler Linderbaum. I don't know if I said it correctly the first time, but dude is Jason Kelce 2.0. And we need him on the team because Kelce is eventually, as much as I hate to admit it, he's going to retire at some point. We need to have his backup in place because that's not a position that you're easily able to replace. Yes, Landon Dickerson was a center in college, but I think Landon Dickerson has entrenched himself at guard at this point, and I think it would be silly to move him from guard to center because I think you've found a spot where he fits. With him and Jordan Mailata on that left side, you're set for the next decade. Let's concentrate on a place that's going to come open soon. Let's get Linderbaum drafted in here, ready to go. All right. Now, that being said, I can certainly see the Eagles either trading picks to move up, or I can see them trading one of the picks to move down and then garnering draft capital for next season. And the reason I say that is if they do stick with Jalen Hurts, which I think they 100% should do this offseason. I think Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew are your 2 quarterbacks going into the season. Keep it like that. See what you have. Next season, if 2022 isn't a vast improvement over what we saw in 2021, if he's still missing the open receivers, he's still making plays that don't make any sense, that's when you go after a quarterback. But I think what they're going to do is they're going to try and build up some draft capital so that next season, if they do need to go get a quarterback, they can move up in the draft and try and grab, a top flight quarterback, or they can make a trade for an established quarterback.
Right. Yeah, no, that's kind of what I was thinking too with the quarterback situation was that, I certainly don't think that they'll draft a quarterback here at all. That's just not what I'm thinking. Unless there's something wacky they do with the draft picks and it's in terms of a trade and trying to get somebody that's, like you said, established. I don't see that happening now. My hopes are that they go after, like you said, edge rusher, safety, or corner or whatever, or maybe even a wideout here in the draft. But my thinking though is that they trying to think of a good way to say this. They don't necessarily play their hand in saying, look, we don't trust you, Jalen Hurts. We know Minshew's not going to be the guy. He's going to be our backup. But we're gonna feel it out here, because come 2023, and if they haven't quite established themselves as a dominant team, I won't say the dominant team, but a dominant team in the NFC East, they're going to make a move, and it's just a matter of how. I wonder how they do it without necessarily saying that it's like, yeah, we don't really think you're the one. I still want to believe in Jalen Hurts myself. I want to see what he does in 22. But I think they need to plant some seeds, and just, yeah, there needs to be some kind of backup plan, and it needs to be for somebody seasoned. I don't want to see it come in the draft. My personal take.
I agree. Now, what I'll say is that I can see them taking a late round flyer on a quarterback, like a lesser known guy, somebody that's not going to put pressure. Not that I think that Jalen Hurts will crack like Carson Wentz did, but they want that person to be there as a developmental arm, as somebody that they can say, hey, all right, if God forbid Jalen Hurts goes down, behind Gardner Minshew, we have somebody that knows the system and is ready to go. I think they'll probably look for somebody like that. And they'll keep them either on the roster or they'll keep them on the practice squad. But that'll be a late round pick. What I would really like to see them do, much like you, I hope that Jalen Hurts is the guy. This playoff game made me kind of rethink, whether or not he is. But we'll see, because I did read an interesting article that where this is only going to be I think the second time in his life that he's ever had the same offense for 2 consecutive years. Because
Right.
every other place he's been since high school, it's every year he's had a new coordinator or a new head coach or both. So now he's going to be going into the second season with the same coordinator, the same head coach, and let's see how he develops. Maybe he shows us all that, hey, it was just feeling comfortable in the system. It was learning the system, and that's all it took. I don't know. I kind of feel like he is who he is at this point, but hopefully I'm wrong, because again, show me a more likable, more seemingly deserving, more hardworking player in the league at the quarterback position, because I can't think of one.
No. You're right. And I think I said early on when we did our preview episode that I'm a big Hurts fan, and I still am, and I want to see him succeed. But at the same point, too, being an overall Eagles fan, I would also like to kind of plant the seed a little bit and just kind of, hey, what if type thing. It's a fun thing to play too.
Yeah.
And so speaking of what if, though, let's kind of wrap this up with looking at current free agents. Do you have any in your mind that you would target going into 2022?
Absolutely. My first one's going to be Hassan Ridgeway, or Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick from Temple. I was really upset when we didn't take him in the draft. I want to see him come here very badly. Edge rusher. I think he would do some good things. Chandler Jones from the Cardinals. Jerry Hughes from the Bills. That's where I'm hoping to go with. Or the sack leader from the Falcons, Dante Fowler Jr., is also a free agent. So, hey, there we go. We can poach another team's sack leader. So looking at if we move on, I'm going to focus on the defensive side of the ball first, and then I'll jump to offense, because there's more on defense that we need. So that's kind of where my focus is. Defensive tackle, we're looking at Calais Campbell from the Ravens. We're looking at Linval Joseph from the Chargers, and I would like to see William Golson from the Buccaneers. Any of those guys, if we could bring any of them in. Linebackers, Dante Hightower from the Patriots, Keanu Neal from the Cowboys. As much as I hate to say, steal some Cowboys,
Yeah,
but him,
gets them off the Cowboys.
that's true. Um, and then if so, we go to cornerback. Cornerback is tough for me because I see some players that I like on this list, and I'm just Kyle Fuller sticks out at me. Stephon Gilmore, I would like, but I feel like he might be. He's probably a little bit. He's going to want more than he's worth at this point. Patrick Peterson would be a good one. Joe Hayden from the Steelers, Xavier Rhodes from the Colts, if you can get him relatively cheap. Um, there's some real good free agents there. And then going down to safety, looking at like Devin McCourty, Quandre Diggs, Terrell Edmonds from the Steelers. There's some good talent there to be had. So how about you on defense? What are you?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I'm looking at edge rushers, and I was looking at like, I this is where I want to see them like do something in the draft, because like I don't want to see them go after anything that's money at this point with guys of any kind of age. Because you have guys like Clowney that's a free agent, right?
Oh yeah, I don't want any
And I don't
part.
want to. And I don't want to see them do stuff like that. I don't want to see them go after a Von Miller or any of these guys. I just don't want to see it.
No,
So I basically in my head had already had any kind of line edge rusher to straight up be like, I really hope they focus those top 3 first round picks, if they still have them or whatever happens, any of the first round picks they have for basically for that. That's kind of what I had in my head. Anyone else, if they're available, if they're at the right price, yeah, that's fine. Um, you know, Look, we talked about Rodney McLeod being the free agent as well. Hopefully, he's brought back. But like, there's a couple of really top flight safeties that are free agents. I don't know if you mentioned them, but the money's going to be the problem. And I tried to think about this, like not really thinking of cap space either. So I was like, well, would they really go after, let's say McLeod's out of town completely and money's not an issue. Would they go after Tyrann Mathieu or Marcus Williams? Um, Command a lot of money, but do they dump a lot of resources that way and restructure a little bit? I don't know. It's interesting to think about. Offensively, though, you know, look, as much as you and I want Jalen Reagor out of town, let's pretend he is. Who replaces him?
so look at the wide receiver class. This is one of the best wide receiver classes I've ever seen as a free agency. As free agents. Um, I don't want to pay for Devonte Adams as much as he's probably
No,
going to
no,
want.
nope.
He's a great player. I would take him on a team friendly contract, but he's not going to do that. He has no ties to the Eagles. But you're looking at guys like Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson from the Bears, who Eagles fans have wanted Allen Robinson on the Eagles since freaking Alshon Jeffrey was on the Eagles. Mike Williams from the Chargers. I don't want any parts of Odell Beckham Jr. I Christian Kirk would be nice. Michael Gallup, if for no other reason, we see him from the Cowboys. Cordarrelle Patterson, who had a career resurgence with the
Oh
Falcons,
yeah,
playing wide
yeah.
receiver and running back. I don't want Juju Smith-Schuster because I don't want any of the headaches from the TikTok and all that bull crap that he does. And then DJ Chark from the Jaguars, who I believe was injured this year. But you know, those guys I would look at. I'm more leaning towards Mike Williams, Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin. That's kind of who I'm circling.
My number one was Mike Williams, and only because, look, I think Mike Williams, as talented as he is, and my thing with him is he kind of to me got lost in the shuffle this year with where he's at. You're talking about a guy who, again, went over 1,000 yards, caught 76 passes for 9 touchdowns. But on the Chargers, boy, you got a lot of people to compete with there.
Oh yeah.
Um, and it's not just, it wasn't just his show, but you know, between him and Keenan Allen and some of these other guys that are, there, that's just a, offensively overpowered team. So with him being a free agent, and you put him on a team that is not overpowered, especially in the wide receiver field outside of, Smith and Watkins, really for us. And even, well, I hate to say this, Lovequest Watkins, but I'm using him as kind of saying that's a little bit of a stretch even. Man, talking about how Williams would fit in with that, I think it'd be awesome. Like, to me, he's like my number one. That's who I need. I need him on this team, because I just think he would fit really well. Uh, yeah, there's other guys. Allen Robinson, I think, is another one I think would be really good, as you mentioned. And then certainly stay away from OBJ. I've never been a big Smith Schuster guy, regardless of his off the field stuff. Um, yeah, it's interesting. And again, they could go the wide receiver route in the draft too.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I wouldn't put it past him.
No, no, no. But there are some other interesting names. You mentioned Devontae. I don't think they touched that with a 10-foot pole just based off money. But just so out of wide receivers though, who else offensively? Because I really didn't have anyone else in mind per se. Because I don't want to use this year to look at the quarterback, and
Right.
I'm trying to stay away from, really looking at like the top flight guys, because they don't really, I'm not saying they don't need them, but there's going to be, it's more of a defensive thing this year. So,
Right. So there's two positions that I'm going to mention. And one of them I mentioned kind of tongue in cheek, just because I'd like to see it happen, um, even if it's just for one game. But Zach Ertz is a free agent this year.
mm-hmm.
So what about a little reunion ski? How about that?
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
You know, but honestly, I don't expect that to happen. I think if that were to happen, um, I don't know that the contract that he would sign would be something that they would want to keep and still keep Dallas Goddard. And now I will say Dallas Goddard put up some great numbers at the end of the season, came up small in the playoff game. There were some plays where just killer drops. I think that that's I don't think that that's something that's going to continue to happen with him. I think he'll be fine, but if that were to creep some doubt into Howie Roseman's head, maybe he looks to trade Goddard and brings Ertz back to finish it out, and maybe drafts a tight end in the draft.
Yeah,
But again, I don't think any of that's happening. I think that that's like far, far, far away from being anything that's even on anybody's minds. But what I will say is that at running back, should we trade? Um, should we trade Miles Sanders, or we don't bring? Uh, I would imagine Boston Scott's going to be back, but if we don't bring back Jordan Howard, which I think would be a shame because I love Jordan Howard. I think he is an awesome running back for this offense. Um, but if they do decide to bring in another running back, I'd like to see either Melvin Gordon, James Conner, or if you want a low risk, high reward, Devontae Freeman is a free agent this year.
I think that's a good one, that's kind of a good set of people too. I love Melvin Gordon. I really think I think a lot of him, solid rusher. But yeah, look, again, it's kind of contingent upon Miles Sanders being sent out of town, because he's a number one, right?
Yeah. And I
I mean,
honestly can't see them doing that, but it may happen. Who
yeah,
knows?
if he is. And but anyway, look, I don't really have anyone else of mind. I think, to me, what makes this the most interesting offseason in a while for the Eagles is that they just have a plethora of draft picks. And, and now it's up to, the front office. I won't name names
Hmm.
to not screw that up. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. but we'll leave it at that. Look, because it's at least exciting.
Yeah.
Because look, they have so many of them that even if they screw up a lot of them, that maybe one of them might pan out.
Right. Now, let me ask you this before we call this thing a show. If Jonathan Gannon were to leave, who do you want to see them bring in? Do you have any picks that you would like to see for the defensive coordinator position?
I want to see someone young.
Do you?
I really do. And
Okay.
and it's funny, and I'm talking just general, looking at the NFL in general these days, and I look at, the Sean McVays of the world, and these guys that are, younger than us, um, that are, that are coaching, coordinating at a high level. I really just want to see some fresh blood. I don't know who. I really don't have any names. But I just really that's now what if they could get somebody of note in, that would be cool. But
See, now that's where I was trying to lead you with that, because that's what I have a dream. I have a dream that we get Vic Fangio, recently fired head coach of the Denver Broncos. But if we could get somebody like him in to work with this defense, I could see the turnaround being extremely quick, especially with the amount of draft capital we have and the amount that we could reload with that. Dude, I feel like that could be a game changer for us.
That's fair enough. Now I think because I watch so much of just the NFL in general, and it seems to be a really push toward now. And I'm not talking about, some of these coaches that have been around for a long time, but there really are, quite a few young ones that have come in, and I don't know. I just think it'd be like a cool, like, fresh blood thing. And I only say that because it's like, maybe they could design it and build it, and then they could, run it for 20 years. I just want to see somebody just do that for a while. I know I'm kind of, really thinking optimistically here, but, just someone that can build it for their own and shape it and craft it and get it that way. No one and I have no one to say that, no one of name. I don't know, someone from college. I don't know, but there are. This wasn't anything like it was football 20 years or 30 years ago, whatever. And there's a lot of young coaches now. Whether they're head coaches or coordinators, it's crazy. I would just love the Eagles to kind of go down that road. Just to, I think it'd be interesting.
You know what? I don't care who they end up going with, as long as it ends up working out. As long as they run a defense, it doesn't look like something that, an 8-year-old with chalk and a chalkboard could come up with. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say that because, like I said, Gannon's defense did improve as the season went on. It seemed like he started understanding that, in the NFL, you really need to put pressure on the opposing quarterback, but they still didn't blitz as much as I would have liked. They still didn't play an aggressive enough defense for me. But then again, he's also getting paid to be a defensive coordinator in the NFL, and we're sitting here doing this podcast for free. So really,
that's true. That's a fair point.
Who's the winner?
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Well, I don't know. I have nothing else, but this is certainly something we will revisit. Be interesting to see. I'd love to, whenever the draft comes around, we'll talk about that. And, just some of these big moves, we'll pepper them in probably, because we're not going to sit there and sit on, like, off season's long. So we're not going to be like, oh, they traded for this person, or they signed this person, or they did this. Yeah, we'll pepper those in, but we'll definitely run through and see if any of these guys, Mike Williams or anyone else, ends up making the team. And hey, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. And hopefully, like you said, hopefully we get some good moves this off season. I know it's only been a week, less than a week since the season ended for us, but I'm really, really looking forward to this coming football season and seeing where the birds end up. So
definitely.
Till next time, we have been the Noise Brigade. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter. And we will be starting up a YouTube soon. So till then, Fly, Eagles, fly.